Some shoes die in the first wear. Others wait until you trust them. 3 brands on this list look flawless in the mirror, photograph beautifully, and earn 5-star reviews within the first week. Then, the sole quietly separates months later, long after anyone thinks to update that review. 10 brands, ranked from the worst value to the best. We are exposing the 3 that are secretly falling apart underneath the polish. It starts at the bottom, where the damage shows up fast. Number 10. SHEIN shoes. SHEIN's shoe category operates on the same volume-first model that built the rest of the brand, and the construction reflects exactly what that model prioritizes. Speed and price, not durability, not repairability, and certainly not the kind of construction standard that survives more than a season of regular wear. The soles are typically a single-density EVA foam or a thin rubber compound bonded to the upper with adhesive rather than stitched or cemented using a multi-step construction process that distributes stress across multiple points of contact. That bonding method is the cheapest and fastest way to attach a sole to an upper, and it is also the first point of failure in almost every pair, with separation at the toe and heel reported within the first few wears in an enormous share of customer reviews across nearly every silhouette the brand produces. The upper materials are almost universally a PU or PVC synthetic leather substitute applied over a fabric or cardboard stiffened base rather than genuine leather or a quality synthetic engineered for flex durability and resistance to cracking under repeated bending. That base cracks along the flex points of the foot within weeks of regular wear, producing the visible white cracking lines rather than a shoe sitting motionless on a display shelf under store lighting. The heel counters, the structural piece at the back of the shoe that holds your heel in place and prevents the shoe from collapsing inward with repeated wear, are frequently made from a thin cardboard or low-density foam rather than a proper heel stiffener built to maintain its shape under daily stress. That construction shortcut is invisible at the point of purchase, hidden entirely inside the upper, where no shopper would think to check, and becomes obvious within a month, as the back of the shoe begins to fold and lose its shape every single time it goes on and off your foot. At $18 to $30, Forever 21 shoes are positioned as a slightly more grown-up purchase than SHEIN's footwear category. with a price increase that the construction quality does not actually justify in any measurable way, once the two are compared component by component rather than judged purely on appearance. If this ranking is making you reconsider what is actually in your shoe closet, hit the like button and subscribe right now. Every week we go exactly this deep into the brands worth your money and the ones quietly costing you more than the price tag suggests. Number 8. Steve Madden. This is the first brand on this list that genuinely looks the part. The silhouettes are on trend, the leather and suede uppers photograph well under store lighting and on social media, and the price point sits firmly in accessible mid-range territory that makes the brand feel like a legitimate step up from fast fashion. This is also the first of the 3 brands secretly falling apart underneath that perception, in ways that take longer to surface than they do at SHEIN or Forever 21, but that arrive with a similar inevitability. Steve Madden's upper materials are frequently genuine leather or suede, which is a real material quality advantage over the synthetic uppers used by the brands ranked below it on this list. The problem is not the upper. The problem is everything underneath it. In the construction details, a shopper rarely examines before checkout. The outsoles on a significant portion of Steve Madden's range use a glued construction with minimal stitching reinforcement, and the sole material itself is frequently a softer rubber compound that wears down at the heel strike point considerably faster than the comparable price point would suggest it should. Independent shoe repair professionals have noted, in interviews and across cobbler review threads, that Steve Madden soles are among the more frequent repair requests they receive relative to the brand's price point, specifically for heel and sole separation, occurring well before the upper shows any comparable wear or visible damage of its own. The leather uppers, while genuine, are frequently a thinner cut of leather than comparable price point competitors use, which means the leather creases and develops permanent fold lines at the toe box faster than a thicker leather cut would under the same conditions and the same frequency of wear. The shoe looks premium in the box and on the first wear, with a presentation that genuinely competes against brands charging considerably more. The construction underneath, however, was never built to sustain that impression past a season or 2 of regular rotation, and the gap between the first impression and the long-term reality is exactly where this brand earns its position on this list. The next brand takes the opposite approach entirely, leaning into a reputation built on durability that the actual current generation product no longer fully earns, regardless of what the brand's decades-old reputation continues to imply to a shopper walking into the store. Number 7. Aldo built its brand identity around accessible, trend-forward footwear at a price point that implies a meaningful step up from fast fashion without reaching genuine investment territory. And for a specific category within the brand's range, that positioning is reasonably accurate and worth acknowledging honestly. The brand's boots and structured leather shoes generally use a more substantial construction than its sandals, flats, and going-out heels, with proper stitched welts in several of the boot lines rather than purely adhesive bonding throughout the entire range. That construction difference matters considerably because a stitched welt allows for resoling, extending the functional life of the shoe well past the point where the original sole wears down, an option that adhesive bonded shoes simply do not offer once the bond fails and the upper begins to separate from the sole entirely. Where Aldo's value proposition breaks down is in the brand's larger and faster-moving trend categories: the seasonal heels, the going-out flats, the embellished sandals, where the construction quality drops to something much closer to the fast fashion tier ranked above it on this list, while the price remains at the brand's full mid-range positioning of $60 to $100, with no meaningful signal at the point of sale to indicate which construction standard a given pair actually received. The inconsistency within the brand's own range is the actual problem, more than any single construction shortcut on its own. A consumer who bought a well-constructed pair of Aldo boots 2 years ago and assumes the same construction standard applies across the brand's entire current catalog is making a reasonable but ultimately incorrect assumption. because the brand's quality control varies significantly by category in a way that the consistent branding, the consistent store experience, and the consistent price positioning do not communicate to the average shopper browsing the floor. Number 6. 9 West 9. West occupies a specific and slightly tragic position in this ranking because the brand built genuine credibility across decades of operation that the current product, under its post-bankruptcy ownership structure, does not consistently deliver on anymore, regardless of how strongly the name itself still resonates with a generation of shoppers who remember it differently. This is the second of the 3 brands secretly falling apart underneath a reputation that has not caught up with reality. The brand emerged from Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2018 with its footwear division, licensed out to a separate operating company. A restructuring that changed the manufacturing relationships, the cost targets, and the quality control processes behind every pair produced under the name since that transition. The consumer buying a pair of 9 West heels today is, in a meaningful sense, not buying the same product that earned the brand its reputation in the 2000s and early 2010s, even though the packaging, the branding, and the price point have changed remarkably little in the meantime. The current range uses a higher proportion of synthetic uppers relative to the brand's historical leather-forward positioning, and the sole construction across several current lines has shifted toward the same adhesive bonded approach used by brands several price tiers below it on this list. The heel stability, historically one of the brand's strongest selling points for the working woman who needed a heel she could trust through a full day on her feet, has become a recurring complaint in current product reviews, with users reporting wobble and instability in heels that the brand's own historical reputation would have made unthinkable a decade earlier. At $50 to $90, 9 West is charging a price that reflects the brand's legacy reputation rather than the construction quality of the product currently sitting on the shelf. And the gap between those two things is exactly the kind of gap that a brand ranking built around honest value has to call out directly, rather than letting the name alone carry the recommendation. If this is changing how you look at the brands sitting in your closet right now, subscribe before we get to the back half of this list. The 5 brands left are where the real value actually starts to show up, and the difference is significant. Number 5. Naturalizer. Naturalizer has spent decades building its brand specifically around comfort engineering for the everyday working woman. And unlike several brands ranked above it, the current product generally still reflects that founding priority with reasonable consistency across nearly the entire catalog, rather than in a single flagship line. The brand's signature N5 comfort technology, a cushioned footbed and flexible outsole system developed specifically to reduce foot fatigue across a full day of wear, is applied consistently across the brand's core range, rather than being limited to a single hero product, while the rest of the catalog quietly cuts corners to hit a lower price target. That consistency is a meaningful point in the brand's favor relative to Aldo and 9 West, both of which apply their better construction unevenly across their range depending on which specific line a shopper happens to pick up. The leather uppers on Naturalizer's core flats and low heels are a genuine and reasonably substantial cut, and the stitched construction at the sole, while not as robust as a full Goodyear welt, holds up to daily wear meaningfully better than the adhesive bonded alternatives ranked above it on this list. Cobbler resoling is a realistic option for several of the brand's core silhouettes, extending the usable life of the shoe well past its first set of worn-down soles, and turning a single purchase into years of continued wear rather than a single season. At $70 to $100, Naturalizer is not the most exciting brand on this list aesthetically, and the design language leans conservative in a way that will not appeal to every wardrobe or every shopper chasing the latest trend. What it delivers consistently across nearly its entire catalog, rather than in isolated pockets of quality, is a comfort and construction standard that justifies its price point without requiring the consumer to know which specific product line within the brand to trust and which to avoid before she even walks into the store. The next brand carries one of the most recognizable names in accessible luxury, and the gap between that name's reputation and what the shoes actually do after 6 months of wear is the most uncomfortable comparison on this entire list. Number 4. Tory Burch. Tory Burch occupies the accessible luxury tier, priced meaningfully above the mid-range brands ranked below it, and positioned, through its branding, store experience, and the recognizable Reva logo, as a genuine step toward investment quality footwear that a shopper might reasonably expect to last for years. This is the third and most consequential brand on this list, secretly falling apart underneath a reputation its price point depends on entirely. The brand's signature ballet flats and sandals, the products responsible for the majority of Tory Burch's footwear revenue, use a leather sole construction that looks and photographs like a genuine investment quality detail, the kind of finishing touch that signals craftsmanship at a glance. Leather soles are historically associated with higher-end shoemaking, a detail luxury and heritage brands have used for decades to signal quality to a shopper who may not know exactly what she is looking at, but to a far broader range of shoppers than its early history would have suggested. The brand's signature cushion, soft and active air technologies, are built into the midsole construction across the majority of the catalog, not reserved for a small premium subset of the range. The way comparable comfort technology is handled at several brands ranked above it on this list. The leather uppers used across Clarks' core range are a consistent and reasonably substantial quality. Sourced through relationships the brand has maintained across decades, rather than renegotiated downward, following a private equity acquisition or a bankruptcy restructuring. realistic lifespan of a well-maintained pair, measured in years rather than months, divides the upfront cost down to a genuinely low daily rate that none of the brands ranked below it can match regardless of their lower sticker price at the point of purchase. One brand remains, and it earns the top position on this list by applying a direct-to-consumer manufacturing model to the exact category, women's flats and everyday leather shoes, where the gap between what a shoe costs to produce and what the traditional retail market has historically charged for it has been the widest and the least justified. Number 1. Margaux was founded specifically to address the gap this entire ranking has been built around: the disconnect between what a genuinely well-constructed leather shoe costs to produce and what the traditional retail and wholesale markup structure has trained consumers to pay for one, often without ever questioning where that markup actually goes. The brand manufactures its core flats and loafers in the same family-owned factories in Spain and Italy that produce footwear for several of the heritage European luxury houses, using full-grain leather uppers and a Blake-stitched or cemented construction depending on the specific style, both of which are meaningfully more durable and more repairable construction methods than the adhesive bonding used across the majority of the brands ranked in the bottom half of this list. By selling directly to the consumer rather than through the traditional wholesale and department store retail chain, Margaux eliminates the multiple layers of margin: the wholesale markup, the retail markup, the brand premium attached to a recognizable luxury name that account for the majority of the price difference between a Margaux flat and a comparable leather flat from a heritage European house charging 3 to 5 times more for materially similar construction and materially similar leather sourced from comparable tanneries. The leather sourcing, the stitching density at the sole, and the structural integrity of the heel counter all reflect a per-unit production investment that the brand discloses with more transparency than most of the brands ranked above it on this list, including detailed information about the specific factories and the specific leather tanneries involved in each product's construction, a level of disclosure that almost none of the other 9 brands on this list offer voluntarily. At $165 to $245, Margaux sits below Tory Burch and considerably below most heritage European leather goods brands, while delivering a construction standard, full-grain leather, a repairable sole, a heel counter built to maintain its shape across years rather than months, that none of the 9 brands ranked below it consistently matches at any price point examined in this entire investigation. 10 brands. Ranked by one standard only: what the construction underneath the shoe actually delivers relative to what you paid for it. The next time you are standing in a fitting room deciding whether a pair of shoes is worth the price on the box, turn the shoe over. Look at how the sole is actually attached to the upper. That single detail will tell you more about what you are about to pay for than the branding, the store lighting, or the name on the insole ever will. Click the next video on the left, because what we found there about the brands sitting in your closet right now changes how you should be thinking about your entire wardrobe budget, not just what is on your feet.